Hello, I'm Mr. Dotson, and this is my update to the Spaceship modeling tutorial for Maya 2018. The first thing we're going to need to do is start a new project. We're going to do that by going up here to the upper left-hand corner to the File menu and choosing Project Window. In the Project window, we're going to choose New, and we're going to just call it Spaceship. And next, note the location dialog. We're going to choose the file folder for browsing. And we're going to look for where we want to save our project. I am going to choose to use OneDrive. I like OneDrive because it gives me an opportunity to save the file locally, but also have a backup on the cloud. My OneDrive creates a Documents folder, and I'm going to create a folder inside of that by using this Create New Folder button. So click the Create New Folder button, and we'll just call it Maya Projects. And then we're going to choose Select. Below where we selected the location for our project, there are several other folders. These are created by Maya. For our purposes, we're just going to leave them alone, but I'll show you here in just a moment what that does. We're going to go ahead and choose Accept. And now I'm going to go to Windows Explorer and show you here I'm in OneDrive, the Documents folder, and then there's that new folder we created, Maya Projects, and inside of that there's a folder called Spaceship. And those are all the folders that you saw. Now what we're going to do is go ahead and save our scene. I like to go ahead and do this very early in the project. Each project may be a bunch of different scenes, such as a movie where they have different scenes going through the movie, or a video game where there's different levels. So let's save this scene. We're going to go ahead and click File, Save Scene, and we're going to do a little bit of navigating here. There's our Maya Projects folder that we created a few moments ago, and Spaceship. And now we're going to go for the folder that's called Scenes. So if it doesn't come up automatically, just navigate to where you created your project and find the folder called Scenes. And I'm going to call mine Spaceship Geometry. Alright, there are a couple of settings that I feel are important that everybody has as they're working with Maya. It does like to crash, especially when you get into texturing and some of the more advanced video portions of the program. So we'll go ahead and make a habit of setting those now. Let's go to the Windows menu and choose Settings/Preferences. And then slide over here to Preferences. Windows, Settings/Preferences, and then Preferences. Over here on the left-hand side, there's several different areas that have settings that you can adjust. We're going to look for the one that says Files/Projects. And you see over here on the right-hand part of the box, it says Auto Save. And I'm just going to choose Enable. And the default setting is to save the project every 10 minutes, and I think that is acceptable. That means that if something happens while I'm working, I've only lost a few minutes of my effort as opposed to the entire project. The other thing that I want to do while I'm here is I'm going to go over here on the left-hand side and choose Undo. On the left-hand side, we're going to choose Undo, and I'm just going to change this to Infinite. Most of the modern computers have enough RAM that they can handle unlimited number of undos, and so why should I limit myself? We're just going to go ahead and go with that. So we're going to hit save, and that's going to take care of those settings for us. Alright, let's start creating some geometry here. We're going to choose the, from the shelf up here at the top, we're going to choose Polygon Cube. Okay, and I think what we're going to do first is we're going to create our ship shape, body shape, and one of the things that I would like to say at this time is that this is not AutoCAD. AutoCAD is designed for precision. You're creating a drawing that somebody else is going to build a physical object from. This is Maya, and it is for artists, and I think that it's important to understand that it is about having that, what does it look good, okay? It doesn't have to actually work, it just has to look good. So we're going to use the scale tool first. We're going to go ahead and click on the left hand side. There's these different tools. The bottom one on there currently is the scale tool. So I'm going to choose scale tool, and you see I have these little handles. I'm going to go ahead and drag these out, and what I want is kind of a flat rectangular box, something like that. You can adjust it however you want. Just whatever you think looks good. Maybe make it a little bit taller. For the next part, what we're going to do is we're going to subdivide the polygon into two parts. And so if we come over here to the far right hand side, we'll see this label that says inputs, and then underneath it says polycube. I'm going to click on polycube so that it expands that menu, and you see on there it says subdivisions with, and I click on and drag that over, and you see it makes more subdivisions. And what I want is, I just want to split it in half, so I'm just going to have 2 subdivisions width is 2. And you see you have 2 parts there. I think this would be a good time to save. I like to encourage my students to save often. So we're going to go ahead and hit Save Scene. Alright. Now I need to teach you how to move around the scene a little bit. So on your keyboard next to the space bar there is an Alt button. Or if you're using a Mac, it'll be the Option button. You press and hold that button, and you click with the mouse button, and you drag, and this is what we call tumble mode. And you can turn your image in any direction so you can see it from any angle. Okay. Using the same button and holding down the wheel on your mouse, it's what they call pan mode. See, it just slides it side to side. Okay. There are some other tools that you might use for this, but we are not going to go into those in this simplified tutorial. The wheel on the mouse button will also let you zoom in and out onto the geometry. I'm going to right click on my my polygon, and I'm going to choose face. These are different modes that you can use to select with. We're going to use faces mode. We were in object mode. That selects the entire object. We're going to choose face mode, and we're going to go ahead and click on the selection tool. It's the arrow at the top of the toolbar over on the left hand side of the screen. And I'm just going to click and drag, carefully selecting all of the left hand side of the geometry. And then I'm just simply going to press the delete key on my keyboard. And what that has done is it's deleted half of my spaceship body. You can see inside of it. The inside looks black and the outside is gray by default. Okay. And I'm going to save again. I like to save often, as I mentioned before. So now what we'll do is we will select our rocket, our spaceship body. We'll right click on it and choose face mode. Sorry, object mode. I'm going to choose object mode. And you see the green lines there indicating that the entire object is selected. And now we're going to go to Edit. The Edit menu is on the upper left-hand corner next to the File menu. We're going to come down to Duplicate Special. And you see after Duplicate Special there's a little box here. And that's a little dialog for Duplicate Special. So we're going to select that box so that the Duplicate Special options comes up. And we're going to choose Instance. I'm going to choose Instance right here. And then I wanted to point out to you, this is the X, Y, and Z. X, Y, Z, X, Y, Z for each of these three. So what we need to do is we need to duplicate to the opposite side. We're going to mirror, basically, our half body. And so we're choosing -1 here. You see here it says -1. And then we're going to click Duplicate Special. We had two things we changed there. We had Instance and -1 on the Duplicate Special. Now I'm going to right click on Faces mode. And I'm going to press the Alt key or Option key on your keyboard. And I'm going to tumble mode so I can see the side of my rocket. And click on the face. And it's going to automatically select the opposite face at the same time. You don't have to do this, but I'll show you. Just notice that my selected face is brown and the opposite side is the same. We're going to use a tool called Extrude. So we're going to come up here to the toolbar and choose the Extrude button. And then what we're going to do is choose Scale. So it's the fourth button down. You see there we have Scale. I'm sorry, that's the last button. Scale. Move is next. And I'm going to just make this a little narrower by grabbing the yellow handle and dragging it down. And then I'm going to press the G key on my keyboard, and that's going to let me use the same tool that I just used, which is the Extrude key. And now I want to use the fourth button down, which is the Move button, and I'm going to drag that out just a little bit. I just wanted to get the engines of my rocket ship a little bit away from the body. If you want to give it a little bit of curvature or shape or whatever, you can move that up or down. And again, I really want to emphasize is that I feel like when you're talking about Maya as opposed to something like AutoCAD, it's not about precision, it's about what does the artist feel like it, or what does the artist think it looks like. I'm just going to move this back a little bit. Just like that. And now I'm going to hit the Extrude key or the G key on my keyboard. And this time we're going to go back to Scale. And I'm going to go the opposite direction. I'm going to make it bigger. Okay. Almost looks like a TIE fighter right there, huh? Okay, we're going to use, that might be too much. Let's try, yeah, like that. And then I'm going to hit the Extrude key. And then I'm going to use the Move key. And I'm going to pull it out. I want this part to look square. This is going to represent the motor of the spaceship. And so I'm going to go ahead and make it square like that. And then we're going to continue on with the wing. So we're going to do extrude again, and we're going to do scale, and we're just going to narrow it down, and then I'm going to press the G key on the keyboard to extrude again, and I'm going to use the move key, and I'm going to pull it out, and make it go up a little bit again, and pull it back some. I'm going to use the Alt or Option button on my keyboard and push down on the wheel on my mouse so I can pan over a little bit so I can see. I'm going to hit extrude again. And I'm going to do move again. I'm not scaling this time. I want the wing to stay the same size. I'm going to pull it out. And what I want to do here is I want to push it down. And then I want to push it way back. And I think I want it down some more. And then what I want to do is I'm going to without extruding, I'm not pressing the extrude key, I'm just going to go straight to scale, and I'm going to shrink that down a little bit, and I'm going to push back as well. One of the options that you have here is this red handle here will do both at the same time. You see it gets it wider as well as narrower. Or if you need more control over it, you can just choose one of the two handles. I want the tip of the wing to be very narrow. Okay, and I'm going to go to the move tool again, and I really want my wing to really sweep backwards, so I'm going to push it back even further. I like the way that is looking. I'm going to use my wheel key to scroll out just a little bit so I can see the whole effect here. Press my Alt or Option key on the keyboard. Oh, that looks good. If I feel like it's too long, I can always move it back. Press this red one in a little bit. Oh, I went way too far because that's why it's turning black. You can see the inside of the geometry. Now, I liked it better when it was out here. I think I'm just going to undo and go back to what I had before. That angle that I had was not a good one, I don't think. Alright. And you can see here that this really doesn't look quite right. You maybe have messed around with that just a little bit more. If the motors are going to be in the engine, this line should maybe continue on that same direction. Alright. Now what we're going to do is insert into the motor. So we're going to click on this face here, and I'm going to tumble mode. I'm going to press the Alt or Option key and use my mouse button so I can see the back, and I'm going to press and hold the Shift key and click the back, and that's going to let me select multiple surfaces. You see that they're brown on the back as well as on the front. And we're going to do the G key for extrude, and it looks a little weird because it's in between the two surfaces that we selected. And we're going to choose scale mode. And I'm going to choose this blue handle here so I can get both directions at the same time. And then I'm going to press the extrude key again, or the letter G on my keyboard. And I'm going to choose the move button. I think for this one, since we have both of them selected, we're going to go ahead and use scale. And I'm going to grab this blue handle and I'm going to drag it in. And what that's going to do is it's going to pull it back in as well, an equal amount. And if you've ever seen like a jet engine, they always have like a little round piece kind of in the middle of the engine. So while I have those surfaces selected, I'm going to go ahead and press the G key to again extrude them. And I'm going to choose scale again. And I'm going to pick a very small square shape inside the middle of it. And I'm going to press the G key on my keyboard for extrude again. And this time I'm going to do scale again. And I'm going to grab that blue. See if I can do it so I can see it at the same time. It's going to be tough because that blue handle wants to be right in the way. And I'm going to pull that out. Kind of create that little knob in the middle of the jet engine, if you will. This is looking really good. I think what we should do at this point is save our work. We're going to do something that's really probably not necessary for this particular project, but I wanted to teach it to you anyway so you'll have it for more complicated projects. We're going to go up to File, and we're going to choose Increment and Save. And it's really hard to tell what happened there, but if you'll notice up here, the file name is Spaceship Geometry.0001.mb. Before it was just Spaceship Geometry.mb. And so what happens is that I have the file that we saved before and this file, so I can go back to a different part. So if I'm trying some new technique and it's just not working out the way I want, I'll have it that way. So now my project is saved, and we'll move on to the next part. Alright, so now what we need to do is combine the two halves of the ship together. So I am in object mode. That's the green lines around the edges. I'm going to press the shift key and I'm going to select the left half of the ship. You see I have now the whole thing selected. Maybe do a little bit of moving around here, a little panning, a little tumbling. And I'm going to go up here to Mesh, and I'm going to choose Combined. Then I'm going to right click on my ship and I'm going to choose Vertex Mode. That's the little points where the two lines come together. So we're going to choose Vertex Mode, and I'm going to just click and drag over this center here so that those are selected. You see they turned yellow. And I'm going to come up here to the toolbar and I'm going to choose Merge. Merge. And now what I want to do is I want to right click and I want to choose Edge Mode. I'm going to right click and go to Edge Mode, and that's the lines. And if you double click on a line, it selects it all the way around. You see how it's brown? And what I'm going to do is simply just delete that line. I'm just going to press the delete key. Okay? So that makes that shape back into a singular one. But if you notice, it's still two parts because the vertices are still in there. The vertices are still in there. And so I'm going to right click and choose Vertex Mode. And in the same manner that I did a moment ago, I'm going to use the drag, which is the marquee selection tool. And there we go, we have those. And I'm just going to once again press delete key on the keyboard, and I have those selected. And now I have a singular object. If I go to object mode, you can see I have the entire ship selected. I can't select just half of it. It's now the one object. And if I go to face mode, I can select any one of those faces as it's a singular object. So for our next thing, I think what we'll do is we're going to create a bit of a cockpit. So we're going to click on that front face there, and we're going to choose extrude, or we can press the G key. Oh, that didn't work, because the last thing that we used was something else. So we're going to click on that face, and we're going to choose extrude. And this time I'm not going to scale it. I'm going to leave it alone. I'm going to use the move key, and I'm going to pull it out and create my cockpit in that way. And now that I have it kind of extruded out, I'm going to use the scale tool to give it that nose shape. And personally, I think it would look really good if it moved down a little bit. So I'm going to go back to move, and I'm just going to move that down just a little bit. One of the enrichment activities that I encourage my students to do with this is to create some kind of windows for your cockpit. I'm going to show you one thing that we're going to do later on. Well, we're looking good. We're going to create kind of a dorsal fin type looking thing on our ship. So we're going to click on that top face. We're going to choose G for extrude. We're going to choose scale. I'm going to use this red handle here and shrink it in. Then I'm going to press G again to extrude, and this time I'm going to choose move. Rotate a little bit so we can see it from an angle. Pull that up. And then I think it needs to go back a little bit, like something like that. Maybe that might be too tall. Again, I think it's very important that you do it however it looks good to you. Alright? And then just to give it a little more of a finish, we're going to go ahead and extrude again, G key, and then move tool again. And then we're going to push it back even more so it has that, that little sharp tip. I know it looks like it's bent, but if I turn my camera, you can see that it is not bent. So again, you're just going to have to do it to your taste. I like the little bit of a hang off of there. We could have done something like that on the edges of the wings. That looks really good. Before I do my next thing, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do increment and save. That way, if I want to go back to before we combine the two halves and do that thing at the end of the wings or something like that, I can go back to that version. So I'm going to do increment and save, and now it is going to be spaceship geometry.0002. Okay, so there are a lot of things in Maya that we're not going to cover in this very brief introductory tutorial. I use this tutorial to get my students to just kind of get a little bit of experience with Maya so they have an idea what the class is going to be like. But one of the things that I wanted to show you here was you can curve it and it looks really good. Oh, you need to go back to object mode. And if you press the 3 key on your keyboard, it will make it all smooth. It's called smoothing. 1 will go back to the boxy square. Many people would like what it looks like there. But I'm going to go with the smoothed version. That looks pretty good. And let me just click off of it so you can see what it looks like without the wireframe on it. That is pretty slick. One of the things that I wanted to try and do is kind of create a little bit of a cockpit. So I'm going to go back to face mode, and I'm going to click on this face here. I'm going to choose extrude, and then I'm going to choose move, and I'm going to pull it up and kind of create this bubble. And I know you're thinking, oh, Mr. Dotson, that doesn't look good at all, but there is a method to my madness, and I'm going to show you here in just a moment what I'm trying to create. And again, if I select my selection tool and I select off of it, I can see it without the wireframe. You can turn the wireframe off. Let's go back to object mode. There we go. Yeah, I don't know. You have to play around with it and see what you come up with. Another thing I like to encourage my students is to create some kind of a motor-like thing on the back center. Some airplanes have a center motor and then, you know, the two side motors. After the smoothing, the little thing that we did with the motors doesn't look quite as bad as it did before. Yeah, I think that's good. I'm going to save and increment. So I wanted to show you kind of my inspiration for this particular model. If you've ever seen Lilo and Stitch, I felt like as I did the project before, it looked a lot like, especially once you do the smoothing, it looks to me like one of the ships from Lilo and Stitch. You can see there's a lot of details in this ship that we did not include in this very short tutorial. Perhaps after taking a look at these images, it'll inspire you to think, hey, you know what? I think I can figure out how to make those small dual dorsal fins or something along that lines. Thank you for participating in my tutorial today. I hope that it inspires you to want to continue to learn more about Maya and 3D modeling. Here's a view of the completed project to use as a bit of inspiration as we go through this tutorial.